Okay, why don't we get started? Thanks everyone for joining us for another episode of Executive Mode. Today we have the pleasure of meeting in Adam Pleasant. Adam is the CEO and founder of the Outcome Company, and as well as a bunch of other initiatives. He's the head of strategic initiatives and ventures at TrufflePig, and he's the AI chief at Decennial Group, a private equity firm spanning data centers, agriculture, and multifamily housing. And today, Adam is going to be walking us through two of the workflows that he relies on fairly heavily. Should be a fascinating look. Adam, do you want to tell us a little about yourself before we launch into it?
For sure, yeah. Thanks for the intro, Gus. Yeah, so Adam Pleasant, CEO and co-founder of the Outcome Company. I think it's the more exciting one of the things that you listed on here. Um, I'll give the elevator pitch on the Outcome Company here. AI is moving at light speed, and in general, in tech revolutions, they pass groups of people up. We at the Outcome Company and the greater Commonwealth Company that sits above that believe heavily that this is one of those technologies that we should not allow to pass people up. It is revolutionary in what it unlocks people to do, and we feel like it's our obligation to meet people where they are and bridge them into an AI-enabled world and wherever they're at on their journey. Whether you dove really into Tech 2.0 and the internet age, and you're very very good at technology, or whether you're a 65-year-old grandma or young grandma who doesn't really know technology at all. AI has a place for everybody, and we want to bridge them to the AI enabled world and then beyond. On the development side of things, I'm going to try to not get super technical about this because really the technical piece of this is a short-lived effort, right? Like it's ongoing, of course. Gus, you know it as well as I do, right? Nothing's ever set in stone. Models come out, they're better. You learn different things about agents and skills files and these things, and you're constantly updating. But really, the hard work is done once, and then everything kind of works beyond that. So I would actually say the technical side of this is not super interesting because the other thing about this is you can probably find versions of this that people have already built and you don't have to think too much about. But let me share my screen if I can.
Share away.
Amazing. One second. Sorry, technical difficulty. Apparently, I have not set my Chrome settings appropriately.
Chrome.
Yes, this
While
is
you're setting that up, one of
there.
my interesting experiences this week has been I plugged Codex into Claude Code, and I had Mythos instructing Codex on what code to write, and that made for some interesting interactions between those two models.
Can you explain that a little more? Sorry, this is being super annoying.
Sure. So basically, I would say when you're looking at Opus 4.8, there is a certain segment of the developer community that felt the OpenAI Codex model was actually able to write slightly better code than the Opus 4.8 model, and but the Opus 4.8 model was a better orchestrator and planner. So there's a plugin that was released, the Codex plugin, that plugs into Claude Code. And then when you want to do something, you say, "Hey, Claude Code, build me." I had it build an iOS app, but build me an iOS app in Swift. And I specified the app. I want it to be a game that does all this stuff.
Hmm.
And to actually write the code, launch Codex subagents. And then so
Very
it
interesting.
planned everything, created all the architectural decisions, and then it launched subagents that use the Codex skill to launch Codex to actually write the code. So that was rather
Very
interesting.
interesting.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna hit a button here that may or may not quit Chrome on me, but I will log back in, I promise. This is the high level my specific development workflow that I've orchestrated. And this was made with Claude. So Claude is just so integral in everything that I do. Um, this is the most technical I'll get on this, and then we're just going to kind of watch it in action. Actually, after the last time we were in New York before Tech Week, Gus, is when I really started to orchestrate out this program, because for the longest time I was just developing like I normally would, right? Like I was using AI to write the specific files, and then I would scope it ahead of time, and I would go through the infrastructure setup and management and databasing and everything like that. And I was like, I'm inspired after that trip. Talking with you is always just gets me excited more and more about AI. I was like, I just need to make this into one solid workflow here. So I sat down for a weekend. I think this specific one took 4 or 5 hours to just set up and test and tweak and test and get it into kind of the final form. But the way that it essentially works is you natural language request. In most of those requests, it's just explaining well what you're looking to build, and then that goes through this, this kind of flow here. Some requests that I make are infra only or production only, so I actually separated those two out of what my workflow looks like, because sometimes an app is just up and running and you're just managing the infrastructure or the production side of it. But for the majority of the stuff that we're just building and testing, specifically on the outcome side of things, but we make tools across Decennial and all the tactical operations companies, and we're bootstrapping different projects across the family office right now. It goes through mainly this A to B to C down the pipeline transition, but really the rest of the pipeline doesn't change too much after, like depending on if you're making features or making a new app. Everything always starts with scoping, right? What AI was really good at for a long time was ideating, and then you can create, descriptions, and then turn descriptions into full scopes and PRDs and things like this. And then you would have to take those PRDs and develop them out traditional ways or using AI to supplement it. Specifically, before Claude Code got released, what you'd have to do is code just in the chat terminal, right? You're having it write snippets of code for specific functions or specific components of apps and things like this. But now AI has gotten very, very good, and Claude Code is phenomenal. It can, really utilizes its 1 million token context well. So I just push the entire workflow into one process here. So you make a natural language request, whether it's a feature, whether it's a complete new app, it goes through this scope writing process. At the ending part of the scope writer, if there's any confusion as to what you wanted or ambiguity in what you requested, it will go through questions until it knows what you want. And then after that, I've set it up this way, and I really highly do not recommend this if you're not willing to fix a lot of things that could be broken. I actually have it not ask me any more questions after that. The only things I don't allow the program to do is global deletes. Other than that, I allow it to kind of do anything, because I'll just go into, Google Cloud Console, which is where we host everything, and I'll just delete things if they're broken. But I have it just go through the whole process so I can work on a lot of things at once. But it goes scope writer, and then the scope writer goes right to an implementer. Implementer is where the rollback will land if there's a failure towards the validation side of this loop. But it goes to an implementer, right? The implementer phases out the scope and starts building against things. Every piece of it goes to a reviewer, and it attempts to catch issues there. And every time something's implemented, it goes through test-driven development. It has to pass a bunch of tests before it can move on. Then it goes to a security auditor, then these deployment guards, another kind of quality check. Then it goes through a bunch of Terraform files and actually stages everything, and then hooks it up to our overall hosting platform and billing and things like this. I don't want to dig too deep into the technical side of things, but what I will say is, if you want to, we develop very, very fast and aggressively, and then we know that we're going to have to solve some issues on the back end. So what I did, instead of having to answer yes a bunch of times when it wants to do things, it runs its own checks, as in like the security check, and then it'll auto fix things, and then your deploy guard, and then your verification and smoke test. And then each one of those can roll back to a previous spot in it to re-implement until it fixes everything. And that, in my opinion, catches most of the things that can go wrong. Now, this requires much more checking before anything goes to like real users and deployment and things like that, the different workflow that we've created. But this is the workflow that I use the majority of every day to develop either new apps, features, or manage deployments. I'll stop there before we get into the actual development workflow.
Great. So what are you interfacing with? Are you interfacing with a Claude code instance? Are you interfacing with Codex? Is it something different?
Yeah, so we're not really an organization that goes to any one specific thing, but I'm going to make the claim that we're a Claude organization because Claude is just kind of the best at what it does, in my opinion. Um, so we interface with Claude Code most of the time. All of my development workflows, though, live on my local computer at our office. And then I use my laptop just to interface with those remote control instances so I can keep them operating from wherever I'm at my phone while I'm at the gym, here in Indianapolis on my laptop. But everything runs off the local machine because that has all of our Terraform JSON files saved on it. It has all of the billing requirements and things like that. Like it just has everything that we need already implemented onto that machine. So I just use the Claude Code interface to interact with my machine that sits at the office that runs Claude Code through the terminal. It's how I interact with it.
I see. Great.
Which is another kind of security guard for me. I don't have to give Claude absolutely everything, right? It can sit on my computer. Claude has access to it from the computer, can pull it when it needs to, but it's not like the cloud instance of Claude has access to everything at all moments.
That's great. And do you have this wrap packaged up as a skill or through Claude.md?
It's a Claude.md file. It lives in the root of my project folder on my main computer. So all the projects get spun up in a similar way. It actually happens through this implementer one, or actually through step A, new project scaffold. Um, and it's just like a bunch of set of rules and it scaffolds it depending on the app that I'm trying to build. So if it's a React, JavaScript heavy one, it scaffolds and architects it in a specific way. If it's ML Python heavy, it scaffolds and architects it in a specific way. So they all live in that project folder. And then for some super proprietary stuff, I like local repo it. And then for some other stuff, I'll use remote repos on GitHub. So I just have full control over it when it lives out of that specific file.
Fantastic. That sounds fascinating. If anybody has any questions, feel free to put them in the meeting chat, and we'll try and weave them into the conversation as we go.
Um,
So using
so that
this pipeline approach you've set up, how much has it evolved since you first started using Claude Code?
Yeah, quite a bit. I actually probably fully dove in on this version of it where everything was contained in the same workflow instead of split up into separate workflows. Probably Opus 4.6. So it's actually been relatively recent that I've been implementing everything at the same time in this one, which has allowed me to develop much faster. But really, the reason that I waited so long is because I didn't have that much faith in the older versions of it to implement my vision the way that I wanted it to be implemented all the time. I didn't think it had the right guardrails within it that I could fully at all moments just believe that it was going to do what I wanted it to. And then as these context windows have gotten better and these model updates have come out, I have more faith in centralizing everything into one workflow. So I'd say this is actually relatively recent that I've implemented this into one.
Great.
If there are no questions, I think that we can actually, I'll pose a different one. Let's come up with some ideas to make an app about, and then we'll spin it up here because I have a
Before we leave this, we have a question.
yes,
So uh, you can see that the colors of the boxes are different.
yes,
Is there any meaning to the different colors?
no, no. Claude made that decision last night when I was putting this image together.
Got it. Got it.
Maybe they had a reason. I don't really see a reason behind it as I'm looking at it, because different parts of that could call for different things, right? Like bug fixer may not be called for everything. But if I'm specifically finding a bug that needs to get fixed that didn't get caught in TDD, then I call just that agent, right? Um,
Sure.
so that I didn't see any color patterns from what I described to Claude to make that yesterday.
Excellent. So you were gonna do a real live implementation.
Yes, give me one moment here because I'm going to re-auth my Google on the machine, which just requires me to remote into it for a second. Uh, and then I will pull it up. Because my
Inter
goal with this is that we can actually get a uh, an app built and deployed, and we can view it on the call live.
so I recently, while you're pulling that up, I recently had Claude write an app. So the thing that always got me is, you receive contact information from people and you want to
Hmm.
add them to the address book. And I hate sitting there in front of that form. So I made a Claude skill that basically I just copy the entire block of whatever information they sent me, and I send it to in this case I'm using Gemini Flash, and I tell it
Okay.
take this block, parse it into contact fields, anything that's irrelevant, throw away, and add it to Dex, which is the contact management system I use, and it
Okay.
automatically does it. And it solved like a long-standing 10-year problem for me. And my life's a lot better because of it.
Would you say that you use Claude more often to solve long-standing problems or annoyances or overlapping between the two of them?
Both. I would say I do both at this point.
Yeah,
Yeah, I find any reason possible to spin up Claude and have it solve a problem
I love
or
it.
an annoyance, you know.
Yeah, I find at this point like a lot of my workflows that can be AI native are AI native, so a lot of the stuff that I'm having it solve for me are annoyances. Where I'm like, this annoying thing came up, I don't want to deal with it. Let's automate it.
So
Okay.
here's an interesting question. How do you go about implementing human guardrails and ensure it happens deterministically?
Yeah, I will
That's a
say
tough
that
one.
it is. I actually attempted to solve that on the front end of it, which is kind of what I was describing to you on like I set the rules that effectively the only thing that never is allowed to happen are global deletes. That's really the only guardrail I cared about on these projects because I know the projects pretty intimately otherwise, and I know there's not much in them that is gonna break otherwise. Like global deletes will fuck me up for like a week because I got to go add a bunch of authorized URIs and things like that into it. But other than global deletes, I'm like, yeah, anything that's additive, I can just roll back to the last one. So my guardrail is that additive things are actually quite easy to roll back, and deletes are quite hard to roll back. So my guardrail is that I can roll back anything myself except for deletes. So that's where I set that guardrail at. But you have to kind of
Sure.
define that for your own workflow, right? Like what are the controls that you find necessary for the thing that you're doing? Define it, set it in the rules specifically for agents in this case, and then test it before you start implementing it, right? Like one of the things I first did when I implemented a no global delete thing is I asked it to go delete a database it was a test database that I didn't care about. And it said I'm not allowed to do that. And I was like, great, this guardrail is working.
That's great.
Okay. I should be re-authed here. So we can do this. So I just set this up yesterday to ensure that it was following the agents, and I actually hadn't updated this since I told it to use Fable 5, and I knew that it just rolled back automatically if Fable wasn't working. So I made sure that this was working a little bit last night, but this will still be a live test. What do we want to build here, Gus? Basic, complicated? It should just go through everything for us. What's something that you're like that'd be fun to see live?
That's a tough one.
I know
Hmm.
we can get audience participation too.
Well, what we could do is we could say, I'm going to hand you a block of unstructured text, extract everything and make a contact record from it. So basically, the problem I had Claude solve a couple days ago. That might be easy
Uh,
and quick for it.
Do you think that ends up being an app in the end or some sort of service? Because basically this development pipeline is more for spinning up applications than it is for anything else.
Yeah, okay. So this is not good for that. Um,
I mean, let's just come up with something fun like uh, scheduling out these executive
Sure.
podcast.
Yep.
Well, by the way, free workflow here that I'm not including is I use Whisperflow for everything because I'm lazy. That's kind of what it boils down to. So let's just whisper this into here. Yeah, let's create an app. Make sure that's working first. Now Whisperflow is closed.
Whisperflow is awesome. I love Whisperflow. The only issue I have with all of these is I like background noise, and
Yeah,
so
it
that
picks up
could be
it.
a problem. Yeah,
Let's create an app for scheduling out podcasts into the future and also a platform that could host old versions of podcasts for people to go watch. Okay, this is a very basic prompt. So we might get some randomness here, but let's try it. But it can be as basic as this, right? Like for some apps, you might just have a basic feature that you want added, right? Like this, I'm hoping asks us some questions because this is not a ton of information. I also have this currently set to ultra code so that it spins up some sub agents. So it might take a little longer on the front end here, but the development of it should be a lot faster. Um,
sure.
but this is as simple as your development pipeline can be. And this is kind of what I meant by the technical and the hard piece of this really comes on the front end. It's in the 4 to 12, however long it takes you to build up your workflow hours, and then the rest of it kind of just functions and works. So um, this should work as this kind of work is goes through this here, but that's as simple as this workflow is. So I don't want to just sit here and make people watch Claude count seconds. So I think this is a good spot to really show what my AI workflows look like, which is I do like 12 things at once. It's just my ADHD brain. So from here is honestly where I would switch to a different task at.
Sure.
So I think this segues really well into my other workflow, which is internal communications. So at Decennial, there's just a lot of initiatives that happen, right? Like it's the nature. Oh, here we go. Fade it. We're just going to pick recommended for all those.
There you go.
So well, there's just a lot of internal initiative, right? It's the nature of the beast. We have quite a few tactical operations companies that sit under us and help us do the work of data center development. Um, and those just require different work and different initiatives, and there's different deals that are flying around that people just need to know about, and just different things that are happening in the business that people just need to know about. And for a while, one of those things that we did was um, spin up decks and podcasts and video overviews of AI tools that we thought the business should know about. Um, One that I actually think is quite useful for people to know about, specifically on this call, because it has a lot of valued organizations, is Google Skills. I'm actually not going to use that as the example of this, but in one of these week's calls, and I'm calling out Google Skills specifically because we ran into an issue on this workflow that I want to just flag if people are going to use it. Google Skills is a learning platform. It's a learning platform that kind of mushes together a bunch of existing disaggregated learning platforms that Google already had built. The issue is that Google Skills, when all of those were separate, was a different service that they offered. So when you're using Notebook LM, which I'll show in a second, to go and search a bunch of information to make these visual media things, it actually found the wrong information on it. So we're going to do a little bit simpler one. What I actually want to go over on this one is Claude's learning modules, because Claude has quite a few learning modules. So the workflow for us is typically have Notebook LM do research, or do a bunch of research if it's a more interesting topic, a more complicated topic on your own. You feed all those sources into Notebook LM, and then Notebook LM does a very good job of making decks and podcasts and things based off of the information you feed it, and they can be branded if you upload your brand documents and your logos and things like that. So for a while, we were doing it on our weekly calls to debut new tools to the team. Like I said, Google Skills was one of them. So I think along that line, because we're always learning, generally speaking, we can go through the flow of creating those visual medias. So let's say.
By the way, for those who don't know what Notebook LM is, it is probably one of the coolest tools to help you aggregate, consume, and learn information. It's just
Yes.
incredible.
Yeah. And that was quite fast. Um, the very nice part about Notebook LM is that they claim it, I believe it, is that you actually don't get any context bleed. It only pulls from the information that you've added to this source side of the platform, which I think is very, very cool. Because then, if like let's say it's an internal document and we need to just put it together into a deck, because like we really use it less on the interact with documents, this middle section, and we use it mostly sources to Studio. It won't pull in information that you didn't give to it, and it's quite good at that. So as you saw here, I went to search the web for new sources, and I just said find me information about Claude's learning modules, right? So it went and found a bunch of articles from Anthropic and from other people about Claude's learning modules, and you saw this. I did this because I didn't really want to go dig through my files on the call, but I uploaded two files before you all joined us, which is the palette, which is the outcome company specific brand guidelines, and then our logo. Because you always want your stuff branded if you're going to make it. And if you don't upload those things, it's going to be random branding that has to do with the sources you uploaded to it and not necessarily following your brand guidelines. The major part of this workflow that we love a lot at the Decennial Group is that AI is really good at what we call the spray of information, right? Like you can ideate very, very fast because it just puts a ton of information in your face. Well, you can do the same thing on a service like Notebook LM because I can, and I'll do it here, create 4 different slide decks simultaneously. Because the first ones might be pretty good, but not every slide of it is going to be what I want. So if you create 4 different slide decks, you can pull the best slides from all of them and actually create a pretty good deck in the end. And it takes the same amount of time as it would take to build one deck out, right? And then go through the hassle of editing the specific parts of it. So after I upload all of my things over here, palette and logo included, I would go over to this right side panel here and say, generate an AI slide deck based on your source. Now, I would not recommend just clicking this button. I would always recommend clicking this little caret over here and clicking into it. You have a couple different options here. The more specific one is going to be here, and I'm going to use Whisperflow again. Create me a slide deck to give to my organization describing Claude learning modules and how we as a business could use them internally to get better at AI. Ensure you follow my brand guidelines and use my logo. So I always add this at the end, and depending on how it gets goofy sometimes I'll also tell it to use white backgrounds instead of dark backgrounds and things like this, but we'll see what it comes up with. Personally, the way that I use this is I always go one detailed default, one detailed short, one presenter default, one presenter short. I feel like it really gives me kind of the best information, and long is often just too long-winded and not enough information on slides. So we'll start here and we'll just generate all of these.
Adam, could we possibly see the palette
Yes.
.png and the logo you uploaded?
Yes. Let me just get the last one of these spun up.
Perfect. Yep.
So it's that easy, right? It's the same prompt that I use for all of them, and I just click through the settings that I want, and I generate all 4 of them. So these will take a few minutes to generate. Let's see if I can. So this is the palette file. I don't know if it's small here.
I see. So a bunch of chips, color chips.
Just color chips, and you know, I tried to upload an SVG. They don't accept SVG, so we'll see how good it does at actually following these. We just don't have yet one made that has like font names and color, like hex yet. We have an SVG that you can get that from, and then we have the PNG, and it only accepted the PNG. So there's that one, and then just our logo file. So those were the 2 things that I had uploaded. So we'll see how close it follows the colors. It should be okay at doing it. But the better way to do it for like the decennial stuff that we build it for, we have a specific presentation brand guideline document that goes through fonts and sizing and hex, you know, for colors and things like this. But we're newer. We don't have that put together yet. We have all of this set in a brand guideline document on GitHub, which they would not accept as an upload. So we'll let this run in the
And
background.
what was the search query you used that populated the sources?
Yeah, I very basically said, go find information about Anthropic's learning modules,
Got it. Perfect.
and it
Thank
found
you.
them. You could be and should be much more specific than that, but for speed purposes, that's what I said here. But depending on what you're researching and what you're trying to build something on, it could be more detailed. It doesn't necessarily have to be. We'll see how good of decks this creates in the end. Um, the other thing that you can do, which I won't do for this because they take longer, is create audio overviews and video overviews, which are quite good. Video overviews look a lot like the slides that they generate. Audio overviews are very much like conversational podcasts. So depending on the media type that you're trying to make this into, I pick one of those. But now let's go back to Claude Code for a second. Uh, it does ask me questions sometimes.
Oh, it looks like it's cooking. I see its heart beating. Or I thought I saw its heart beating. Yeah, there it goes.
yeah,
It's
yep, yep.
yeah, that's great.
Um, so you do have to accept some things, right? Like a lot of it are just reading local files that are not in the project folder. It has to ask permission for those because it's not part of the pre-approved list of files that I gave it access to. Um, so it'll keep cooking here, and it should give us either a local host that we can spin up, or a hopefully a hosted link.
Great. And just on what you said with the Notebook LM and its ability to produce audio overviews, audio podcasts, one amazing feature is that you can barge in and ask a question. So you could it's literally
Hmm.
two hosts going back and forth on a particular topic. And while you're listening to it, you could raise your hand, and then you hear the host say, "Oh, I think one of our listeners has a question. What's your question?" And you ask the question, and then they answer it. It's
It's awesome.
absolutely awesome the way it works.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's see if it is. Oh, what happened? That's
I don't
weird.
think I've ever seen a failure on that.
Me neither. Gotta love technology, right? Um, Very strange. But yeah, this is, and then so, like I was saying, part of my workflow is just working on a lot of different things at once because of moments like this, right? Like this is cooking in the back end, this is cooking over here. Like, I don't want to just be sitting here scrolling TikTok in this time. So typically I work on 5 to 8 projects during any one day and you just keep chipping away at them. So I think this is a good time for any other questions while these two things are running. Um, and then we can hopefully get some outputs here in the next 15 minutes by the time we're out of here.
So we have an interesting question. What are the downsides of doing everything on your machine instead of using the cloud?
Yeah. Uh, there, honest to God, are not many downsides, right? Because you're still using the cloud hosted version of Claude Code to access the machine essentially, right? Like it's still Claude Code. It's still, you can still access it through the web version, which is how we're using it now, right? Like this Claude Code that I have spun up on my screen now is I'm accessing it through my computer, through the cloud. It's just running off of my computer at the office. Really, the downside is, and you run into this every now and again, is when your computer decides that it needs to update when you're in the middle of something, it spins down those terminal sessions, and when it reopens, it does not spin them back up, which is the major downside of it, right? Like on the cloud side of things, even if the cloud instance is down, it'll spin back up, and you're not going to lose the things you were working on. I lose the things that I was working on. Lose is a very loose term. You just have to go spin it back up and go into that project and read the memory file and see what it was working on. Go read the last results and things like this. Um, but that's the major downside, is that you may have to spend an hour respinning everything back up that you were working on, which is it's not an insignificant downside.
Great.
see if this failed again. That'd be very strange. I in all the times that I've used Notebook to make things, I've never seen a failure on the generation of anything from the studio side.
Uh,
Do we have any more questions while this is running here? I hate to have dead air.
so I would say so in putting together the outcome company,
Yes.
how much of a partner was Claude in coming up with those initial pieces to tackle?
It was it was a good partner. Like I was kind of describing before, what it's very, very good at is this spray of information. Um, so when you use that spray of information to make your ideation very, very rapid, it's a very, very good partner. It's still just a computer in the end, though, right? Like you should use in all moments, you should implement your own human thinking in the crucial pieces of it. So use it to spray you in the face with ideas, and then just take those ideas and go to Google or go back into your own corner and think about it overnight and all these good things, because that's really where the power of AI is at. It's not in making decisions for us necessarily. It's in supplementing our own brain power, our own traditional ways of doing things, right? I don't want a lot of these notebook ones, right? Like sometimes we'll use them to make just normal deck source. It won't necessarily be product specific or research specific. Um, you go and use AI to do a bunch of research on the slide deck you want to make anyways, to give you a bunch of different slide copies. You then take those and you retweak them in your own corner. You go find the sources for it that you think fit the best. You go to Google for a little bit. You do like normal research methodologies. Then you go back to AI, and instead of making the decision where you made the decision, you're having it clean the thing that you did. It's very similar to when we were starting Outcome Company, specifically on the 100 outcomes that we originally were building against. It's great to come up with 500 ideas for outcomes that people can use, but then you as a human need to be like, what are the logical ones that we should pick to launch this thing? It's not going to be all 500. It's going to be some subset of that has major overlap with what we believe people need in their lives. So a major partner in that way, that it's probably the world's best partner at bouncing ideas off of. But I still have to use my human partners on significant pieces of it.
So on this, you can see here on the screen that Claude basically wrote MVP scope documents. Do you
Yeah.
spend do you spend any time reviewing those documents? How much editing typically do you do?
Yeah, typically, in most cases, I don't just tell it to build an app for me. I give it a relatively thought out full description, including some features and things like this that I'm looking for. Um, in that case, it typically writes very good scope documents. And at this point, I know that it writes really good scope documents because I've reviewed a lot of them. So I don't actually go in and do editing on a lot of those. On the code side, of course, it's like constant editing, as you know, right? It's very good at writing code, but even the best people at writing code introduce bugs inadvertently.
Sure.
And when you're coding as fast as you and I can now, there's just more bugs that get inadvertently added into things. You can only catch so much on TDD.
And I noticed that it's creating doc files for you. So you're still you leverage Word as the documentation piece.
It actually, everything should be in Markdown. It's calling them docs, but it's not a doc. I think they're just calling this write
Ah,
cadence MVP scope doc is like we're
got
writing the
it.
scope document, but it should be in
Okay.
Markdown in the files in the back end.
Got it. Got it. And I'm sure you've seen the new direction online where a lot of people are saying, "Hey, transition away from Markdown and let's start using HTML again." It writes
Yeah.
fantastic HTML docs. Have you had any experience with that? Are you trying it out? What are your thoughts?
I haven't tried it out yet. I actually tend to let these what I would consider fads pass by. Um, So for example, like you've been hearing all over Twitter, I'm sure, over the past little bit about looping instead of prompting. I'm going to say instead of very loosely there. Um, well, you and I
Yeah.
know that like looping is not a new thing, right? Like what the general population is now calling looping is just effectively a orchestrator validator workflow, right? Like, yeah, you shouldn't be implementing any agents that don't check their work until it's done. So we don't need to call it looping, and we don't need to be telling people that prompting is not necessary anymore because it's just not true. What that whole fad is about is prompt appropriately and be goal oriented on the front end, and then the validation loop inside of whatever agentic workflow that you're using should be not allowing the orchestrator to return to you completed information until it has been validated to completion. um, we just put a word on it, right? So I have seen that this using HTML is a very popular thing, but personally, I don't really understand, and you are a much better developer than I am. I don't really understand what using HTML could offer that using a markdown could not. Maybe a small amount of token savings, but HTML as a file type, I don't think can impart more information than like a pure text markdown can.
Well, the reason I think HTML is gaining some traction is because in an HTML file, I can embed images, for example. You
Mm,
can you can embed images in Markdown. You can create ASCII art images, and they're very useful.
hmm
But you can do a lot higher fidelity around the graphics in HTML. You can also create dynamic documentation, if you will, with JavaScript so that it explains the concept a little bit better. So the
Yeah.
richness of that documentation is really where I think some people are saying, hey, there might be some advantages to HTML over Markdown.
Got it.
Um,
Yeah.
Also, typically tables come out better in HTML than they do in Markdown if you don't have a good Markdown viewer.
Yes,
Um,
yes, yes. Well, I understand it from like a giving information back to a user perspective for sure. Um, I just don't understand. I mean, maybe I haven't dug in on it enough, right? And I'm not, no one says they know everything. I'm definitely not one of those people. I just, from like an instructing agent's point of view, uh, are the agents digesting that table into text in the end anyways, right? So they may see a table, but
yeah,
are they just going to retranslate into text that just add an unnecessary step for the ease of like you as a human viewing it,
yeah,
Also, I
yeah.
don't know why these kept failing, so we're just going to go to the one that I made on Whisperflow.
Great.
So I made two for this one. Um, we can do this one here. So we're using Whisper, so that's honestly a pretty good one. The only issue is that I made this before I was on the Ultra plan, so it still has a notebook LM tag in it. But I digress. Um, so this is one for Whisper Float. So this one I didn't make with. Um, this is this one didn't matter as much as it was a much faster turnaround than the rest of them. So this one we didn't make with our brand guideline, but it used all the information that it had from Whisper, and it just made this. They're good looking decks, right? Like this is very easy to present on an all hands team call. It has a lot
If
of
I,
information baked into it.
it's so wonderful. I mean, if I had to create a PowerPoint or a deck like this, it would take me literally a month.
Yeah. And it took 5 minutes to make this, right? Now you can see they look very, very similar, but it's a little bit different than the last one. But that's kind of the point of using the same prompt to create, 2 to 4 decks for this is that they're mostly the same. But like maybe I think this one's too busy, I like the last version of this slide a little bit better. Well, then I would just go take the last version of it and implement it into this spot in the deck so that I have this version of that slide that I like the most. And now I have 4 versions of that slide to choose from, which is why I make multiple versions of it. But other than that, it's like basically the same information. It's basically the same images. It doesn't really change that much. Um, and that's really the end all of this. And then this one I actually made a video overview of that I can pull up,
Great.
right? I don't want it to actually keep talking to us, but I would like it to move on. Um, it just does a good job. It just does a good. I mean, this is one of those ones that is not a fancy workflow to set up, but it just does its job and it does it well. Um, and that's really why I enjoy using Notebook LM to make these kind of DACs, whether it's a product specific one or whether it's a initiative specific one. Um,
Sure.
as you can tell, this is quite careful when it develops because we're 24 minutes into this and we're not done yet. But that's part of getting a full app spun up and running. Um, I think I'll stop there. Now we're just kind of in running mode. You can see what Whisper outputs as. I can also probably no, those are all like work specific ones. Actually, here, let me find one more for us here while this is continuing to work. Oh,
So, of
actually,
course, the main use case for Notebook LM, its original use case was to help people digest academic papers. And it really is absolutely phenomenal for
it
that.
is.
So I use it constantly. I'll upload, tons of research papers
Hmm.
on emerging architectures and whatever, and
Yep.
use all the tools, the studio tools to generate a lot of those assets. But then that centered chat box where you can actually discuss the concept
Yes.
is just
It's phenomenal.
amazing. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah, we've repurposed it for this, but I will very firmly say repurposed, right? Like the way that we use it is not the original intent of it, but it works very well for the way that we
Yeah,
use it.
yeah.
So this is the one that we created for Google Skills. This was with our old branding. Again, it just makes good looking decks. It makes them well. This
Really
is not
does.
a QR code that works, which I think is hilarious, but it just makes them well. And this is another one of those ones that we did four different slides on, and like I'll just pull up one more here. They're basically the same looking slides, and you just get to choose, right? And there's no cost to generating one versus four, so you might as well just generate the four. And then the same thing here. We did two video overviews here to pick which one we liked better to send to the team. Um, so that's that. Let me see if I can go back to here. Yeah, it's just being real careful here. Oftentimes you can see that I'm answering more questions than I would typically have to. When I first spin one of these up, it just needs more permissions to go and read and overwrite a bunch of files. And then after that, on that specific terminal window, it doesn't ask those questions again because I've already said yes to it a few times.
Yep.
It's a fight that I'm constantly having with it because I don't want it to ask me any questions, but it requires me to answer yes a few times during the development.
Dangerously skip permissions.
That's the
That's
headline.
the yeah, that's the big one.
Just no global delete.
Yeah.
And well, I think we should open it up for any more questions that we have here.
Sure.
The nice thing is what I can do after this is we can send out a link to the people and I'll figure out how much time it actually took to get this out. Right now we're at 27 minutes. So I'll send you the clock and then I'll send you the link that you can go click through.
Sounds good. Sounds good.
Uh,
Um,
let's
so
open it up here.
any questions, anybody? Feel free to either chime in or put it in the chat, whatever your preference is. So, well, I have a question. So you have a preference for React and Node, is that correct? And
Yeah.
then
This,
Python when you're doing ML.
yes. Yeah, React and Node for our like normal, not ML math heavy applications. And then even if there is like an agentic AI piece of it, it's still React, JavaScript, Node. Um, but then you spin up workers in Google Cloud, we do at least, to be able to run those things in the background. So it can still be mostly React, Node. And then
Let
yeah,
let
for
me
go ahead. Yeah.
let me throw out there. I've been particularly enjoying both Go and Rust.
Okay.
The ability to create self-contained binaries. So I don't have to deal with dependency hell and
Yeah.
versioning and all that stuff, and I could just, take a binary to another server and have it run there. Just is really great.
That's amazing. Yeah, I'll
And
definitely check
yeah,
that out and probably implement a version of that into our implementer agent, into our scaffolding agent.
totally.
Um, yeah, I mean, as you can see, this is development. It's quite boring when AI does all the work for you.
Absolutely.
It's also quite boring because it does quite a good job at spinning these things up without many issues. So it does take
Yep,
longer for it to catch its own problems. I have a question
absolutely.
for you, Gus. How much code do you think that Cogito, I won't talk about the whole firm, but you are shipping at this point is written by AI versus written by you?
Well, I would say I ship almost 100% of my code as AI at this point.
Yeah.
Um, and I love writing code. I've been writing code for as long as I can remember. I think I was writing code before I could actually talk. And I've written everything from assembler onto just about every programming language you can imagine. And I love writing code. And I feel like a new superpower has been given to me with Claude. Um, so I don't miss the drudgery of writing code,
Yeah.
and I love the superpower of being able to sort of think, to conceive of something, and then actually have it implemented in a few hours, in a few days.
Yeah.
It's just incredible.
For sure. Yeah. Would you say that being a developer in 2026 and kind of beyond, especially for younger people or people with kids, is a superpower in the world of AI, even though AI is writing the code for you?
Absolutely, absolutely. In order to take a piece of software, in order to write a system and then deploy it as a product, there are so many things you need to think through. It's a lot more than simply a prompt that says build me X.
Yeah.
So when you're trying to build a production ready system, you're giving it a lot more guidance about specifically how you want to solve challenges like horizontal scalability, how you want to handle, how you want features to fit together, and um, sort of the approach for extensibility, the approach to security, and all these things. So, in the age of AI, technical skills don't go away. They become even more important and even more of a superpower when you're building systems.
I love it. Yeah, I agree. I would tell people in 2026, I'm just going to take this off screen series. It's quite boring at this point. Um, that any sort of logic based degree, so I don't have a degree in computer science. I have not been programming for that long, but I did get two degrees, one in math and one in physics. Um, any logic based degree is just going to help you a lot because you can learn the basics about scaffolding and app and things like this, but like use your own logic here, right? Like learn how to solve problems the right way, learn the logic of solving problems, learn persistence in solving problems, and especially in today's day and age, that'll take you super, super far.
Absolutely. Fantastic.
Well,
Well,
like I said, I will follow up with the exact time and a link that people can click through. I have a feeling it'll land somewhere around that 45-minute mark, but it'll be a full scaffold out with the back end in the end. So 45 minutes, I think, is pretty quick to get that spun up.
phenomenal. Well, thanks again for sharing some of your AI workflows.
Yeah.
And just to remind everyone, you'll be receiving an email with a link to the recording. And please reply with any suggestions you might have for topics or areas you'd like covered in future webinars. Thanks again. We greatly appreciate everyone attending, and we love all the great questions. And if you have a question and you haven't gotten it quite answered yet, feel free to shoot us an email and we'll get back to you. Thanks, everyone.